Security VIP is the official podcast of the security industry, from manufacturers to end users and everything in between. Security VIP is your home for nothing but the truth.
You think you know me?
You're listening to the Security VIP Podcast, hosted by Taylor May, the official podcast of the security industry and home of nothing but the truth. Today on Security VIP, we feature the Director of Surveillance at Snoqualmie Casino, Jolene Stewart. Get ready for nothing but the truth.
Security VIP Nation, what is going on? Welcome back to the episode of the Security VIP Podcast, the official podcast of the security industry and your home for nothing but the truth. As always, I'm your host, Taylor May, and on today's episode, we're featuring the Director of Surveillance of Snoqualmie Casino, Mrs. Jolene Stewart. Jolene, welcome to Security VIP. How are we doing today?
Great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and Jolene, it's incredible because you and I met at the World Gaming Conference about last month. I was a creeper and just like LinkedIn messaged you and I said, hey, this girl is incredible. How can I get in front of her just to get her on my podcast? So we had lunch, during the conference, and little do I know, you're like a total badass because you're not only a former veteran, but you're like a leader in the gaming sector. And long story short, I'm humbled to have you on. I'm grateful to have you on. Thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I will be honest. I did have to check you out. I asked a few people, is this guy legit? Who is this guy before I agreed to lunch? So I was glad I did. I had a great conversation with you that day. So
no, I feel you. My wife says the same thing. You know, it's like we matched on Bumble. It's like, oh, is this guy legit or is he a creeper? You have to watch out for the people like that, right? Especially in this industry when you have a bunch of vendors. I keep saying this all the time on my podcast, just snake oil salespeople, man. You gotta do your own. Yeah. Exactly. So Jolene, tell us about your background, your experience, give my listeners and my followers what you are all about.
Okay. Well, I would say surveillance found me. I didn't go searching for surveillance. So I had spent time in the Army. And when I was done with active duty, I returned home to my hometown in Coos Bay, Oregon. And I was born and raised there. Didn't have any experience with the casino industry at all. I didn't even know how to play blackjack. So I was a little out of my element, but I knew that I didn't want to do what I was doing in the military. So I just kind of took a shot in the dark and went for an interview. And the director of surveillance there at the time was also prior Army. And so he hired me for my military background, which is what I do now because of that. Because I found, you get a lot better quality candidates sometimes with that background. But anyway, I started out as an agent there back in 2004. After a year there, I was promoted to supervisor. I fell in love with the job right away. I knew it was for me immediately. After 4 years there, I saw a posting about a casino in Washington that was opening up. And I was a single mom at the time and I wanted to change. So I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just try for it. And I ended up getting hired on here as a supervisor. So I came up here in 2008, about 4 months before the opening of the casino. So we got to open it. That was really exciting. And now 18 years in the industry later, I've been here for almost 14 and I think director for 8 now. That's my current role here at Snoqualmie Casino is the director of surveillance. So love what I do, very passionate about it. But yeah, it found me for sure. I was not thinking that I would be in surveillance. I didn't even know that was a thing when I started out.
Well, I'm glad it found you because Jolene, there's not a lot of females in your position currently. And you look at this naturally, you look at the physical security, I call it now the electronic security industry. It's just very male driven. My wife, she used to work in the construction space, very male driven. It's hard to find kind of pioneers for females in the space and typically from your kind of untraditional roles too. So most females are always in like HR and marketing, right? But to find someone like you that was a supervisor, now you're on your way up to your director of surveillance. I mean, it's rare to find that. So I want to give a kudos there, especially to my listeners and followers, because we need more people like this, like Jolene in those kind of executive kind of C-suite positions, because you guys bring so much more diversity and from that position experience. And even Tony Clark said the same thing to me last week. He said it's rare to find someone like Jolene in this kind of suite that we talk about, just because from her experience, not only in the Army, but how she's transitioned now to the electronic security industry. So talk about that further, Jolene. You've been in here 18 years, you said, 8 years in director role. What has been the biggest change from day one on the job to kind of where you are now in the gaming space?
So I think that's probably the biggest change. Obviously, when I started out almost 18 years ago, we were recording everything on VHS tapes, VCR.
Oh, you said the same thing. Yep.
Yes, we literally had to switch the tapes out. I think it was like every 8 hours, one by one, put a new one in. When we wanted to find something, it was rewinding. It was it was brutal. So digital surveillance is our friend for sure. But I think probably the biggest change is how surveillance has changed, and it's like in what we do actually as a surveillance department. So like when I first started, I remember it was all about, gaming and just details, following the money. And it was very reactive as opposed to proactive. And I think as times changed and we've got all these tools that are available to us, like, analytic tools and different things that we're able to, or we're being asked to look into more Title 31 requests, things of that nature, that where we can look into financial questions that the executive suite may have for us. And there's just a lot more resources at our hands that we can use. So I think the job itself has changed a lot. It's not about like card counters and table games only anymore. It's very broad, which is nice because we learn a lot more. But yeah, I think overall the whole realm of surveillance has changed, really. And it's been exciting to watch.
Those days of VHS tapes, now it's like an antique, right? You keep those for the kids one day.
We say it all the time. You don't know how lucky you are to have this, because if you had to switch tapes out like we did, I feel like a parent talking to some of the new people that come in.
Yeah, how easy they have it now.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's good, because I don't know, Jolene, have you seen this movie? I watched it this past weekend. 21. Have you seen that movie before with Kevin Spacey?
A long time ago. Yeah.
So
it's an older movie, right?
It is an older movie. That's
okay.
Why
yeah.
I bring it up because even if you look at the SOC in that movie, it was like analog and just like tube TVs. I'm just like, good Lord, this is back. I think that movie came out in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. But it shows you where we are now, even 20 years ago, from that kind of evolution. And that's kind of exactly what I'm going to be talking about next week at IC West with Eddie and Tony and Ray on my panel about the evolution of security and gaming, but those challenges that you just brought up around what you guys used to go through with VHS tapes to kind of where we are now in the IP digital age. So talk about, I guess, what's the biggest security challenge for you guys at the casino?
I guess this would sound really obvious right now, but I'd have to say for us, it's the masks. I mean, during this pandemic, from a surveillance standpoint, that's what we rely on, right? Is to see faces. And when they're half covered up, that takes away a lot of what we just take for granted, is just being able to see everybody's face. So when they're coming in the door, with half their face covered up, it's really hard to determine who somebody is just based off of what we do, without getting an ID. If nobody has an ID, I mean, those things are being lifted now, but I feel like it's going to take a long time before that optional thing goes away. And those people that don't want to be seen are going to use that optional, decision to still wear a mask and come in. So I think from just for us, we don't have a whole lot of security issues besides the normal, different kind of parking lot stuff that casinos and other places have. But yeah, for surveillance, from a surveillance standpoint, for sure, it would be just trying to do our job to the best of our ability without actually seeing faces.
So the mask problem, Jolene, do you guys have any kind of like facial recognition technology combating the mask problem, or is it just?
No, we don't.
Okay.
No, we don't right now. I don't even know how well that technology would work with masks right now. Sure. I mean, I have seen some demos, and it's just, it's so much different in a real world setting in a casino with the different lighting and the ceiling heights and different things. So put masks in that, in with all of those other issues. It's just, I don't know that it would even help us right now. And maybe it would, but we teach our people, our agents, facial recognition techniques to just do it ourselves right now.
Right.
So yeah, it just makes it really difficult with the mask, but hopefully we're combating that, I guess, to answer the rest of your question is if we see somebody that we would like to get a good face shot on, we're just going to ask security, radio to them to ID them, they'll ask them to take their mask down. We'll get a nice face shot of them.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, especially, and that's the thing I talk about casinos. I think you guys have probably the most difficult job when it comes to security and surveillance, just because it's open, 24/7,
Right.
and the amount of inflow and I guess ingress and egress of people, traffic of people that come into the casino is, it's hot always. You could have mass traffics, you could have concerts, you got entertainment events, studio events, whatever it may be. And it can make it difficult with all those lighting combinations, the different kind of gaming sets. I think you always have to be on edge. I want to say almost have to be on edge though, just for waiting for something to happen though, because you never know who's going to walk through that door and do something, right? That mentality.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, but that's good because obviously, being former military, you're probably like, Taylor, this is like cupcake walk for me. I used to deal with this shit all the time. So
no, there's always something new. Every day in surveillance, there's something new that I haven't seen. So I would never say that just because I was in the military, I've seen it all. I have not seen it all. And this job surprises me every day. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Jolene's being very humble and modest right now, people. So don't let her fool you. No, I'm just kidding. No, I agree. Everything you have to be prepared for that unknown, right? You just don't know what's going to happen next. But Jolene, talk about when it comes to new procedures or initiatives that you're trying to implement. Maybe you went to a conference, you said, yeah, this is exactly what I need. Technology, I've been looking for this the last 5-6 years. What's the approval process with you guys at Snoqualmie? It's tribal, correct?
It is tribal.
So talk about that approval process in a tribe, because I'm going to ask Tony the same question next week at ICUS. How do you guys get things approved at your casino?
Well, I'll start out by saying, so there's two different ways. Each casino, I won't say each casino is different, but surveillance is either going to be under operations, which my boss, so my boss is the CEO, or a surveillance department could be under the gaming. So since we're under operations, I think speaking for myself is just don't break that trust. Like my boss trusts me, the tribe trusts me right now to make good decisions for this company, for this casino, and for them. And as long as I'm not breaking that trust and I'm doing everything that I can to make this business and these agents, these employees successful, and not making purchases or decisions just because it's the thing to do, like, facial recognition. It's newer. I don't want to necessarily bring it in right now until it's working the way I need it to work, or the way I feel that it should work. And so just not breaking that trust. I'm fortunate enough that, I can come to them with a recommendation that maybe I brought from World Game Protection Conference, and there's something that I want to implement, and they listen. And because they trust me that I'm going to make that decision that's best for the tribe, best for the casino, best for all the employees here. So I think for me, that's the best answer that I can give. There's no special approval process, or obviously down there, if I ask for something, then those, the channels have to go through for the money and everything. But it's just trust for me. I know that not everybody has it that way, but for here, I think that's very important to build that trust with your bosses and
Well, it's funny you bring it up, Jolene, because most of my guests that are end users or clients, they tell me the same thing. They say, Taylor, I've got a seat at the table. I've got that reputation where my executive leadership team trusts me on what I'm going to put in and bring in and listen to me. And one of my previous guests I've had is a guy named Daniel Henderson. He's like the director for a hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. And he said, Taylor, for one, I can voice my opinion and bring in what I want, but, for whatever reason, that solution that I bring in doesn't work, I take ownership of that too, so he's accountability. And I think that's good. Not a lot of people take accountability, at least in our industry, because especially, on the manufacturer side, I tell you about the latest and greatest technologies, but I don't tell you about the flaws or the weaknesses that are with my product, right? Because we don't, and I talk about transparency, and that's what we need more about. And I see more transparency with individuals like yourself when it comes to initiatives or procedures that you're putting in place. So it's good to hear that, Jolene. But talk about So let's say you do find the product or solution you're looking for. How do you allocate funding for that, or what's the I guess the budget? Do you guys have grants, bonds, or certain OpEx spending? What does that look like?
No, just capital budgets
Okay.
that we request. You know, we have to, like, my job is to come up with my basically wish list, if you will, for the year and what I'm looking to get. And I just submit a capital budget and say, this is what I want. And I explain the value in it, and they can take it or they can throw it back at me and tell me, you're crazy, we're not giving you that much money. So I just throw it out there. And I feel like as long as I'm proving the value in whatever I'm asking for, they take that to the tribe, and the tribe either approves it or denies it. And I mean, it's out of my hands at that point, but yeah, if I see value in it, I'm going to ask for it. I don't think I've been denied for anything that I've, because it's always been something that I can prove value. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's great. Jolene, is there any, I guess, one piece of solution or one piece of technology that has provided the most value for you during your time at the casino? Let's say, hey, this is the best investment we've ever made. Can you talk about that further?
Yeah, I think we have a really great surveillance system. So our entire system, we operate, we have a Dallmeyer system here, surveillance system, and it's been phenomenal. And then eConnect, we use eConnect here. And I think that has probably been the most advantageous tool, other than obviously our cameras and our whole surveillance system, because I mean, you can go in there if you know how to use it correctly and you actually use it. We have dedicated people that use it day in and day out. And we have found, unfortunately, multiple people, internal theft, it's there. You just need to know how to use it. And if you don't have that tool, I mean, it makes your job so much harder, because you can just go in and look for trends in eConnect, and you're going to find something. I mean, if you just keep looking, keep digging, you're going to find it. It's there. So I think eConnect has been probably our most valuable tool in surveillance that has caught the most, theft or issues that we have so far.
That's good. I think so. WinStar Casino in Oklahoma, it's owned by the Chickasaw tribe. Kenny and Nick are the two directors at that tribe, and they also use eConnect, and they say the same thing. So it's good to hear that. I know Eddie at MGM in Vegas, his baby. He says he literally calls it his baby. It's IndyVision. It's a facial recognition solution. He said we've caught so many people with that technology. So I always love to ask, what's been the biggest ROI, I guess, from your initiative. So that's good to know. Jolene, I want to pivot real quick to a different direction. We talked about it early on in our discussion, but you, as I said, I'm a big advocate for females in this industry, but more so of an advocate of leadership positions for females. And you're in a leadership position at your casino. And I want to talk about your success so far. I guess what do you believe has led to your success so far in the gaming industry in your current position? You started out as a supervisor. You said surveillance found me. I didn't find it. But how did you shift now to that director role? Talk about that.
Oh, geez. I think I'd probably just have to, I was raised by great parents that taught me to work for everything that I have. Like, I literally was had a budget that if I wanted anything over that school closed budget, I had to get a job. So I've been working since I was 13 every summer to earn money for school closed. But I think that mindset, and then the military, I cannot discount the military. It changed my mindset there too. But just going in, knowing you got to work hard for whatever, and knowing that there's no ceiling. You don't need to stop once you get to a certain point. And that honestly, and this may be a little bit unpopular, but I don't see gender in it. So like when you say, a female role, and it's very important, I will say that, but I also try and go in thinking that it isn't about being male or being female. It's about your knowledge. It's about your experience. It's about your confidence and your passion. And if you go to the table with all of those things, so it's true, it's a male dominated industry. I'm not going to say that it's not, because that is apparent. But if you don't focus on gender and you just believe in your abilities and you're confident, I don't think that there are limits to what you can do or how far you can go. That's just the way I've looked at it the entire time. I mean, they're going to, if you show these qualities and you show them exactly what you know and what you can do, they're going to believe in you. It may take some time, but you're going to be sitting there with those people, and you just need to share that knowledge with them and let them know that, hey, I know just as much as you do, and I can do this just as well. So.
Oh, I 100% agree. And that's why, my podcast is about nothing but the truth. You're speaking the truth about that because to your credit, it is about, this industry is male driven, and it shouldn't matter whether or not someone's a female or male or whatever. Gender shouldn't matter about leadership positions or where you are in the industry. And I love that you said that, because I think, frankly, we need more of that. We need more people like you, Jolene, leading that space. Because I guess, you've paved your own path for your own self. Obviously, with your military background, you've been raised by great parents. That work ethic, I talk about all the time. I walked on to Oklahoma State. I had to work to earn playing time, playing football.
Yeah.
Same thing. Obviously, the military is a little bit more extreme than playing college football. But what would be advice for younger individuals like yourself, especially females? Not to keep saying females, but I guess if more females want to get involved in the security industry, but also look to you as a role model, what would be the advice you would give them?
I guess I think the biggest piece of advice is don't pretend to know it all. Just make sure that you put in the work to know it all. So don't pretend. And if you don't know something, then don't pretend you do. Just tell them you don't have the answer for that, but know where to find it. I've seen a lot of, I've learned a lot from people, my supervisors, past supervisors, that did pretend to know it all, and they would be wrong. So you tend to look at them like, wait, that's not quite right, but why are you saying? So just don't pretend that you know it all. Don't be afraid to say you don't. As long as you're leading these people and giving them the correct information and be able to learn from them. Like, I learn more from my agents than anybody, I think, when they're doing the job every day. I'm here with meetings and budgets, and so they teach me a lot. So I would say don't be afraid to learn from those that you're hiring, because they can teach you a lot. And just taking the knowledge from anybody that you can that's willing to give it, and share that knowledge once you have it. I think that's really important too.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of the females that I ask about advice for younger generations, they always say, well, Taylor, just don't be afraid to speak up, because I feel like not a lot of people give people like yourself an opportunity to speak up, or sometimes people are just hesitant to voice their opinion.
Yeah.
But the counter effect of that is, I'm glad you said, look, if I don't know something, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to admit to something I don't know. Again, transparency, honesty, principles that we talk about all the time. So I love to hear that. I guess a counter question to that, Jolene, let's say someone's new in your role. What's something that you've learned from that in your experience that you wish you would have had from day one? Talk about that real quick.
My experience from day one as a director, or just in surveillance? As
a director, if you wish you would have had that experience or known this before you came to that position.
Oh, geez.
You're like, there's a whole list, Taylor. I don't know.
Yeah. Learning. So I guess I can say probably learning about budgets, learning what that the director position is no longer about, at least for me, is no longer about surveillance, like watching people doing the day-to-day business, right? There's a whole other side, that the budgets. Like, I was put into this position and accepted it, but it was right at the beginning of budget season, and I had no clue. I just got my bachelor's degree, but I mean, that can only do so much, right? But when you're put in the real deal, like, and they're like, okay, we need your budget submitted by, in like 4 weeks. And I'm like, I don't even know what the process is. So I think just talking to the people and asking them for help. I was afraid at first to look stupid in the role, like, oh, I'm a director now, I shouldn't be asking people for help, because I should already know what I'm doing, right? I'm a director. I think if somebody would have told me then, like, don't be afraid to ask help. Obviously, you're new in this position, you need help, you don't know everything. Don't be afraid to admit you don't know everything. Everybody starts off. somewhere. So you're not going to walk into everything knowing everything. So I think that would probably be my biggest thing, is just know it's okay to ask for help so that you get it done right. Because I was afraid to ask for help. And now it's like, if there are new directors that are coming in this state, because we have a small network, and if somebody gives them my name and they call, I'm more than happy to talk to them about my experiences and what I've learned over the years. As you know, hopefully I'm helping them a little bit to make that transition a little less scary, because it is scary. It's scary, knowing that you're leading a team, but you may not have all the answers. So
that's a great piece of advice. And Jolene, wouldn't it be nice if we're going to school, getting our degrees, that they would have taught us how to file taxes or budgets,
real life stuff.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us the real world stuff instead of these random classes? No, I joke about that. That's a whole different discussion I'm having with a couple of my colleagues about whether or not it's important to get your master's degree, because I have an MBA, but it's do I really use my MBA? Maybe sometimes, but see, even certain certifications in the industry, there's as-is certifications, and I'm sure there's certifications in the gaming. Does that really carry some weight in your day-to-day? I don't know. I think there's an argument there to be made. But last couple questions here, Jolene. I guess, what are some goals for 2022 that you have?
My goals for 20, I think it'd be the same as every year. Just try and be the best leader that I can be for my team. Make sure they have all the tools that they can to be successful, because in reality, they are what makes me successful. So if I don't have a successful team, then who am I, right? So just trying to do the best for them and learn and grow from them and improve, and try and make this the best surveillance department in the state, country. I don't know. Just make us the best that we can be. Really, that's my goal every single year.
Take that, Tony. Take that, Eddie.
Take that.
You guys can follow Jolene. That's good. So last and final question, Jolene. It's kind of just a random question, kind of an open-ended question. You can take it any direction you want, but any kind of final thoughts or recommendations towards moving forward in the gaming sector or the industry itself? What can manufacturers like myself or integrators in the industry learn from people like you? What are some last thoughts that you may have?
Let's see. So I guess, as crazy as the last couple of years have been, I don't know. I think just be fluid. For people, integrators and like you said, vendors, and just be fluid. Let us make decisions based off of what we need at that current time. We may not like my property. I know that facial recognition is a wonderful tool and people have a lot of success, but it's not going to be right for every property at the same time. So I think for that portion, that's what I would say. But it's been a crazy couple of years. So I think anything can change at any time. And that's what it's taught me a lot too about that. But there's a lot going on. There's new technology coming out all the time. It's very exciting. Analytics. We've got facial recognition, weapon detection, all these things that I never thought I would have to deal with in surveillance, to think about. So, I think it's going to be exciting. I think surveillance and security as a whole is going to change a lot, even more than it has. And it's changed a lot since I've been involved.
It definitely has. And that's why I talk about the evolution change, especially not just for our industry, but even gaming. You talk about emerging technologies, and AI is just around in that. You talk about SaaS models and recurring revenue models. You talk about VSaaS and, cloud innovations. I mean, there's just so much going on. And that's kind of why I started my podcast, Jolene, back in 2020, because when COVID-19 came out, there was a lot of bullshit technologies that came out with it, I was like, how can I bring transparency to the industry around what works and what doesn't work? So It's good to hear that end users like yourself are doing your own research and vetting vendors and vetting integrators on, hey, look, I know you're trying to make a quick dollar, but has this been battle tested? Who's using it, who's not using it? What's the flaws? What's the weaknesses? And I think, if anything, from this episode, Jolene, you've given me more reassurance about how we need to act moving forward around our actions, around being honest and transparent when it comes to initiatives and procedures and technologies that, we deliver, I guess, as an industry. So I appreciate that. And Jolene, I guess, normally when I have people on my podcast, this is like a yes or no question, but sometimes, people are like, Taylor, how can I speak further with individuals like Jolene? And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not going to share contact information only if, the guest wants to share contact information. So if people want to get more involved with you, Jolene, what's the best route to do that? LinkedIn, email? What does that look like?
LinkedIn, email's fine, jstewart@snowcasino.com. Either way, I can get a hold of. I don't mind if people reach out at all. If you don't hear back from me, then I probably didn't want to speak to you.
Boom. I love it. I love it. Swipe left. She just swiped left.
That was a joke, kind of.
No, I agree. Yeah, watch you have like a bunch of vendors now. Just blow your inbox up. Let's not do that, guys. But no, Jolene, thank you again for the time. It was a pleasure having you on my podcast. And for those want to learn more about my podcast series, you can watch this episode of Jolene and I on YouTube. It will be published next week. You can listen to us on Spotify if you're on the road. And then for all the announcements and latest features about my podcast series, you can follow us on LinkedIn. You guys stay safe out there. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Better recognize you are